Thank you.
I did want to talk about those delisted players, but also the rule changes. So maybe we'll start with the rule changes. So there are seven new rule changes bracing the AFL in 2026. We have the first one. A free kick will be awarded when the ball crosses the boundary between the 50-metre arcs from a disposal. What do you think about that one? Last touch rule, as they call it in the SANFL.
Yeah, sorry, but it's last disposal as opposed to last touch?
Yeah. I keep calling it that because it's just snappy.
Yeah, I like it. It will be interesting. I'm not totally against it, but, it's one of those things where I think the AFL, when they introduce changes, they sort of put it out there in the public consciousness for a while and we start to get used to it. Before long, we kind of accept that it's a thing before it's even been announced. So with this one, it's not a big surprise. I don't mind it. I mean, I don't know if I feel like... I mean, what's the behaviour it's trying to correct? They want to get teams to stop playing around the boundary, I suppose, or disincentivize that. Therefore, that would lead to less stoppages. So I'm a little bit intrigued to see how that plays out, having not watched the SANFL and made much of an assessment of how it actually affects it.
I've watched the odd bit of SANFL and it's not something that is readily noticeable, I would say. It's not something that you go, oh, that's strange. In fact, you could watch a game and not even realise it's happening. And you said that it'll disincentivize playing around the boundary. I think that would only work on a last touch because it's on the last disposal. It's a little bit different.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because there's still a good chance it'll get touched out of bounds.
Yeah.
But still distinctly possible though. Like you still have to make the risk assessment if you're kicking long that it's not going to just sort of spill out in front of an opposition player who lets it go out of bounds and gets a free kick. So there will be little things like that, but it won't be a monumental change. And what did they estimate? Like 2 to 3 less boundary throw-ins or something? Yeah, exactly. So, look, I'm not against that one, to be honest.
I will say though, in overall, as we go through these rule changes, I think they all have a bit of an element where it's going to affect rucks. And that's probably the amount of stoppages in games is probably a consistent thing across all of them. The next one is a player must stand if they are within the protected area when a mark or free kick occurs instead of being able to drop out of the area. So I think this one's been misconstrued a little bit because people took that as anyone that's in that zone suddenly has to stand. So you could have, you could have 2, 3, 4, 5 players potentially in that zone and then everyone has to go like freeze kind of thing. So that's not what it's going to be. It's going to be one nominated player.
So they can't move backwards. Is that the idea?
Yeah. You can't guard any more space. So you're pretty much stuck to that mark and the player's still going to be able to like run around you in some sense and sort of open up the field a little bit more. So again, probably favouring those transition players that like to get on the ball, kick, and then stops the opposition team defending as well against you so you can move the ball better.
I'm struggling to get my head around like what it will actually look like that's different to what it is now. I suppose any outcome where there's more 50-metre penalties paid is a worse outcome as far as I'm concerned.
Yes.
Because that was prevalent this year as well. Just so many games, maybe not decided by, but certainly like moments were ruined where it's just like, oh, they get a free kick. Oh, why? Because he stood over the mark.
The worst one is like when it's forward of centre or just from the centre line and someone goes from just having the football about to kick inside 50 to basically an assured goal.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it happened across the league, but I remember in Eagles games, we always seem to be on the wrong end of it because we're bad and undisciplined.
Yeah.
I don't mean the decisions were wrong. I just mean like we just did shit like that all year.
Yeah, made stupid mistakes.
Yeah.
Ruined games.
And in fairness, like this one it gets everyone, that rule, because it's unclear. So if there's more clarity for the players, maybe it is a good result.
I sort of agree with you. And there's a couple of these rules where I'm like, I read the rule and I'm like, how much has that actually changed from what was happening before? I'm not too sure. I'm one of those people that actually doesn't mind. I can see people in the comments saying that they don't like the stand rule. I'm not against it really. I do like the idea of the game becoming a bit more of a ball movement type of a game as opposed to that sort of heavy contest all the time.
It looks ugly though.
The stand rule?
Yeah, it looks funny to me when a player has to stand the mark and the player's running around him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That
it's counterintuitive,
it looks
isn't it?
Gross.
You're supposed to be able to stop that player. And it is weird, the umpire constantly yelling stand.
Yeah.
That's strange.
Actually, just to go back to the last disposal, one thing that is actually good is if it becomes objective that the ball goes out of bounds every time, like if it's off a disposal, it's a free kick, it takes away the element of umpire adjudication.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously in some ways it makes it harder for them to make those calls, but What I mean is those insufficient intent free kicks that we all hate our teams conceding, and where there seems to be real inconsistency.
Can I just
Now
say,
it's just
can I
black
cut
and
in
white.
here? Unpopular opinion. I like insufficient intent. I like the randomness of it.
The randomness of it? I don't know about the randomness
I
of it.
like the spontaneity and the jeopardy when the ball goes out of bounds and you get to go like, is he going to pay it? Like, you know what I mean?
Just as a fan, like from the spectacle point of view.
Just a complete fan.
Yeah.
And like there's something kind of riding on it. It's a bit of a gamble.
Yeah, sure. I don't know. I prefer to see it less random, to be honest. I'd like to see it more predictable, which at least this is what I'll say. So I actually think that's a positive in that, we concede a free kick in that manner, we'll go, okay, yeah, that makes sense. None of this like, oh, that's bullshit because that one wasn't paid, but this one is.
What happens though? Say, I don't know if you remember the Nick Dacos one against the Western Bulldogs where he sort of just took a step over the line. Is that going to be last disposal?
Yeah, I would have thought not. But you can still be paid deliberate, right? I would have thought.
Or insufficient intent. Is insufficient intent still a rule?
I presume so.
So we still have that.
Yeah, there has to be. So another scenario is a spoil. If you go back to the Ballantyne miss after the siren in the derby, I don't know if this lingers in your consciousness as much as it does West Coast and Freo fans, but
it definitely doesn't.
But
go on.
What happened was Rosa spoiled the ball out of bounds, but because it wasn't a marking contest, it was just like touch ball or a handball, and he punched it out of bounds. Look, he thought he had the right to do that because you can spoil over the line if it's a marking contest, and it wasn't. That, in theory, should still exist because it's not a disposal. He's punched the ball out of bounds, but it was deemed deliberate, which it was.
Yeah, I don't offer spoil. I don't mind it. There was also that one, to give another example, that Hawthorn one earlier in the season. My memory is now struggling, but there was kind of like a skill error. Carl Amon, he was sort of like falling over the line and he kind of missed his teammate and was given, I think it was against the Giants in a final, I want to say, in this final series. But that was another, see, I don't mind if you make a skill error as opposed to not trying to keep the ball and you've made a skill error. What's the difference between insufficiently intending to keep the ball in play? Have I made any sense there?
Yes, my brain's a little foggy because I'm not very intelligent. No, I guess like it's to disincentivize teams tactically moving the ball out of bounds, right? So if you've made a skill error, I guess the result is the same, but it implies you had a better option.
Yeah, I just feel with a lot of these rules, I apply the same thing to the bumping stuff, and people say like, what was he supposed to do? But if you get the bump wrong, like if you make an error, you've kind of executed that particular skill wrong, and you can still be suspended and things like that. And same goes for free kicks with me. If you make a skill error, I'm okay with that still being a free kick against.
Yeah. Well, I suppose that will be the case now because of his last disposal in that situation.
Well,
right?
in that particular instance, that would be definitely out. Yeah. A few people saying as well, like taking in the comments here, like taking that off the umpires is a good thing because they do have a lot of work to do. And I do agree with that overall. There also are tons of umpires in AFL. Which is sort of
I work with an umpire actually, and he was pretty. Actually, should I say this? No one's going to work out who it is. He had concerns over some of these rules and how much harder it made it for umpires. Actually,
you're talking about Dan.
I think in particular the last disposal rule. He's just saying like umpires sometimes like it's hard enough, particularly if you're a boundary umpire, to know where exactly the balls come from.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So, you know, that will make it difficult from that point of view. So we'll see, I suppose, in effect, if it results in even more mistakes.
Yeah. I got a few people in the comments here saying, no talk about draft yet. We are going to get there. I promise you we're going to get there. And there is method to the madness here because some of these do affect the draft as well. The next one, a shrug in a tackle will now be deemed prior opportunity, similar to an attempt to evade or fend an opponent. I've got to be honest with this one. I thought that was a thing anyway.
Yeah.
And now it just seems to be how I thought it was always done. But they did show some examples and it's like, you know when you're playing football and somebody tackles you and you automatically go into that, you put the arm up.
Yeah.
Essentially, like you're trying to slip the tackle.
Yes.
Essentially, if you were re-tackled after that and weren't able to dispose of the ball, it would be a ball up. Now it's going to be a free kick against.
I already thought that would have been considered prior.
So did I. But apparently it's not. Apparently it was adjudicated correctly if you balled it up from that situation, which is strange. But anyway, I don't think that's going to change the game overly.
What if a tackle actually slips high and like a classic Luke Shuey, Jack Ginnivan boom, and he gets taken out and it's high. Do they call that holding the ball?
Well,
Like, let's say he
in the examples, that tackle is allowed to slip high because all of the examples they give, it sort of inherently goes high.
Yes.
Because the tackler's arm ends up over the shoulder.
Yes.
But the umpire at that point has deemed that he is ducked. If they think it's overly zealous contact, I think they would pay a free kick high.
Sure.
The difference now is that there's more onus on that player with the ball to dispose correctly of it after that situation.
Okay.
So that's kind of the line in the sand there.
Gotcha.
This is a big one. At centre ball ups, rucks can't cross the centre line and engage with the opposition ruck before contesting the ball. So this one is going to fly completely in the face of those rucks that like to wrestle. Tristan Sherry is a big one for this. He comes across, he goes over and engages the opposition ruckman straight away and tries to get in a wrestle. You can't do that anymore.
Is that just for the centre bounce, or is
that's just for centre bounce?
Yeah, we call it the centre bounce, but it's not going to be that anymore.
Centre throw up.
But like, let's say there's immediate stoppage and then the ball's thrown up again. The players will still engage in a wrestle, right? The rucks
around the ground.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't see a big difference in impact, right?
How many centre clearances? How many centre stoppages per game?
Probably 25 to 30. I mean, that's actually I'm thinking 12 goals a game per team plus the quarter breaks.
Yep.
That might be a little bit higher than what is actually average, but
yeah. Well, for those ball ups at least, it is going to favour a ruckman that can, get a run up and jump at the ball.
Yeah, more
so than the real physical beasts. I suppose.
James points out some players like CDT are going to be more needed via more physical ruckman.
Yes, and I think this goes into the overall rules. If we look at all of these changes holistically, it's not just about specifically the stoppages. It's also about how much rucks are going to be affected from an endurance point of view and their running ability, which a ruckman like CDT, that also helps massively. Because the next rule is at stoppages, umpires can restart play without a nominated ruck present instead of waiting for those rucks to get to the ball up.
Yeah. Yeah, so I read that the ball has to hit the ground before anyone touches it if no ruck has been nominated.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
So the mids can't get involved?
Well, they can nominate. If they fail to nominate, they have to let the ball bounce first.
Yeah.
It's going to be weird to see that play out. I think people will hate that.
Yeah, that's weird.
But it may not happen that often, to be honest.
But it will help rucks that can get to more contests.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. And again, those rucks like Tristan Sherry and Lloyd Meek probably aren't as good a runners as, let's say, Rowan Marshall.
Yeah.
For example, who's going to get around the ground. So that's an interesting one. The 666 one's pretty minimal. It's just that there doesn't have to be a player in the goal square anymore. I think we can skip over that one. It won't affect the game too much. It's just
I think they got rid of the warning, which might actually have a little impact.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
And time allowed to kick in will drop from 12 to 8 seconds, which again, if that's going to have any flow-on effect, it's really just that players that can run, the ball's going to be in motion more.
Yeah.
Overall. And that kind of goes into all the rules. Like we talk about the last touch or last disposal rule. The ball will be in play more often. They talked about overall with these rules, they talked about a drop in actual play time and the quarter's actually getting longer, but the time we actually spend on field being less.
Yeah,
so that's going to go up.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Interesting. Overall, some interesting changes there. I'd say the most significant is probably the last disposal. That's one of the more significant rules brought in for some time, I would have thought. Yeah, I'm not against that one. I suppose the stand rule is the one I'm just a little bit nervous about. What I care about is how many 50s are going to be paid. Because I mean, I know that 50-meter penalties exist to coach out of or disincentivize behaviors, but if the behavior is so hard to prevent because the players are unclear on what the rules are, then it's just going to.
I know.
We're going to see a lot of 50s.
No doubt there's going to be that 5 to 6 week period at the beginning of the season where there's just overcompensation and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I will say with all these rules and what we're talking about with players changing, there is probably a level of mitigation with that 5th bench spot now opening up. So previously it was a sub and now we're going to have that as an extra running player. Do you think that will potentially help to mitigate some of this stuff?
How so? Because in theory you have fresher legs?
Yeah.
The interchange cap has remained the same. So I haven't worked it through my head
that's true.
How much easier that will actually make it. It's the same amount of interchanges.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose it can give you more structural, a strategic sort of wiggle room, right? If you want to go tall and then small and then tall and then small in the same game.
I'm just thinking how rucks are used currently. Like a lot of teams just run the single ruck, and you've probably got that ability now with the fifth player to run like an extra running ruckman.
Yeah.
And then they're going to be able to give that ruckman more of a chop out.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder if teams will employ a more running ruckman at the beginning of quarters, and then you want your Tristan Sherry wrestler as the game gets into a bit more of a dogfight as well.
That's a good point. Yeah. Because, wrestling is tiring. It's like when you watch boxers, it's a real strategic thing for them to wrestle when they've got the physical advantage, right?
I remember a game with Tristan Sherry last season towards the end, and he was just the game. There was a really high stoppage game. It might have been against the Swans or someone. I can't remember, but he was just so physically exhausted, and I think he had a couple of head knocks as well, which were affecting it. And it's just that physical game style when there's a lot of tackles, a lot of stoppages, very very taxing indeed.